Hey there. Before we dive into this, if you're enjoying the journey, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where and what time you're experiencing this from. Ready? The year is 1347. You wake up not in your bed, but in the middle of a medieval winter, long before dawn breaks. The first thing that hits you isn't the cold, though it bites at your exposed skin, but the thick, overwhelming scent of damp earth. It's in your nostrils, coating the back of your throat. A deep, almost ancient smell of soil, rotting leaves, and something vaguely metallic. Your eyes flutter open to absolute darkness, so profound it feels like a physical weight pressing down. You try to move, but your limbs protest, stiff and heavy, each muscle a knot of protest. You push yourself up, slowly, feeling the rough, cold ground against your palms. Your fingers sink slightly into the soft, muddy soil, a gritty sensation that anchors you, however uncomfortably, to this unknown place. A shiver racks your body, not just from the cold, but from a deeper unease. Where are you? The air is utterly still, so quiet you can almost hear the silence ringing in your ears, broken only by your own ragged breath. You try to stand, one foot sliding on something slick, a frozen patch perhaps, or a root slick with frost. Your balance is off, your legs weak and trembling. Every muscle aches, a dull throb that speaks of exhaustion, of travel, or maybe something far worse. You fumble around, desperate for purchase, for any familiarity. Your hand brushes against something hard, rough, yet organic. It's the bark of a tree, immense and ancient, its gnarled presence a dark silhouette against the barely perceptible lightning of the eastern sky. You lean against it, letting its rough texture ground you, the cold seeping through your thin tunic. The smell of earth is still there, ever present, but now, beneath it, you catch a faint whiff of wood smoke, distant and almost imperceptible. Is that hope, or just a trick of the exhausted mind? You squint into the gloom, trying to pierce the veil of night. Shadows stretch and dance, morphing into imagined shapes, figures that seem to watch you from the periphery of your vision, just beyond the reach of reason. Your hand instinctively goes to your side, a familiar spot where a sword hilt should be, where a scabbard once hung heavy, a comforting weight. It's empty. A cold dread settles in your stomach, colder than the winter air, sharp and immediate. The peace here, if it ever existed, feels fragile, tainted. It's a quiet that buzzes with something unspoken, a stillness that feels less like rest and more like holding your breath. You remember faces, fleeting glances in the dark. Not the kind of faces that offer comfort. More like shadows. The kind you saw in lands far away, after the battles, when the shouts died down but the screams echoed in your head. You stand there, a lone figure in a forgotten wood, the damp earth beneath your feet holding secrets, the silence holding memories. Home. It was supposed to be different. It feels like another battlefield, just a quieter one. A different kind of fight begins, not with steel, but with silence, and the heavy weight of what you've carried back. A sudden sharp snap echoes through the air. You flinch, your entire body tensing, instinct screaming, ready to duck, to fight, to block. But it's just a twig, broken under your own foot. The sound, so trivial, reverberates, unnaturally loud in the profound stillness that surrounds you. This quiet, this absolute absence of clamor, is more jarring than any battlefield cry. It presses in on your ears, a heavy weight, like the air has been sucked out of the world, leaving behind only this oppressive, resonant emptiness. You take another step, then another, each crunch of frost-hardened leaves beneath your worn boots feeling like a thunderclap. Every slight movement of your hand brushing against your rough tunic, every inhale and exhale of your own breath, feels magnified, alien. Where are the shouts? The distant clang of steel, the muffled thud of hooves, the low, guttural roar of men. Your senses, honed for years to pick out the subtle cues of danger amidst chaos, now find nothing. This quiet is a vacuum, pulling at your mind, unsettling you in a way no enemy barrage ever could. You move slowly, cautiously, your eyes darting, searching for a threat that isn't there. The trees, now visible as jagged silhouettes against the faint pre-dawn light, stand motionless, their branches bare and skeletal. No rustle of a hidden archer, no heavy tread of an approaching patrol. The only tremor is the one that runs through your own tired limbs. You stop, your chest heaving, not from exertion, but from the sheer effort of trying to process this unnerving peace. Your ears strain, waiting, always waiting, for the familiar cacophony of war, but all you receive is this ringing, deafening silence. A small bird, bold and unafraid, chirps suddenly from a nearby branch. Its song is delicate, intricate, and utterly out of place. It's a sound you haven't truly heard in years, swallowed by the noise of destruction. Now it pierces through the stillness, a tiny, defiant affirmation of life that, paradoxically, makes the silence around it feel even deeper, even more unsettling. You watch it, a flicker of something unreadable in your eyes, a grimace tightening the corner of your mouth. The bird takes flight, a whisper of wings, and the silence rushes back in, complete and suffocating. This is home. This is peace. And it feels like the loudest, most dangerous place you've ever known. It makes you feel exposed, a raw nerve, without the shield of surrounding noise. You find yourself standing before a dull, unyielding surface, a sheet of polished steel, acting as a crude mirror in the dim light of a small, cold room. The air here carries the faint, lingering scent of stale wood smoke and something metallic, a familiar tang that prickles at your nose. You reach up, tracing the stubble on your jaw, the roughness of your own skin, a strange comfort against the chilled air. Your fingers feel foreign, calloused and thick, moving with a weary grace. Then, you lift your gaze to the reflection. It's you, of course, but not the you remember from years ago. A stranger looks back, gaunt and hollow-eyed, framed by a tangled mess of hair and beard. Your eyes, deep-set and shadowed, hold a distant, haunted look, like embers long past their fire. There's a tightness around your mouth, a permanent grimace that seems carved into your very being. The ghost in the mirror isn't a spirit. It's the specter of the man you once were, barely recognizable beneath layers of exhaustion and grim experience. You lean closer, your breath fogging the cold metal for a fleeting moment. Your hand rises, almost instinctively, to your forehead, tracing the jagged line of a faded scar that cuts through your eyebrow, a permanent furrow. You remember the whistle of the arrow, the searing pain, the desperate scramble. Your fingers move down, exploring the landscape of your face, each ridge and hollow a silent testament. The twisted cartilage of your left ear, mangled by a glancing blow from a mace you barely dodged. The faint, puckered mark on your cheekbone, a lingering kiss from a broken blade. Each one a story you carry, etched into your very flesh. You pull back your tunic, the coarse fabric scraping against your skin, and expose your chest and arms. A map of scars unfolds. A long, white line slashes across your ribs, a brutal souvenir from a Saracen scimitar. Your bicep bears a deep, circular depression, a memento of a siege engine's splintered timber. Your forearms are a patchwork of smaller nicks and scrapes, the everyday insults of battle. You trace them with a detached curiosity, feeling the raised tissue, the skin that healed differently, always a little tighter, a little tougher. These aren't just marks. They are chapters, lines of a brutal poem written on your body. They speak of pain, of survival, of moments where life hung by a thread. You lower your gaze, the chill from the metal creeping into your bones. The reflection stares back unflinching, carrying the weight of 1,000 battles, 1,000 nights. You wonder if anyone else sees this map, or if they only see the hollow eyes. You carry these scars, not just on your skin, but in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you breathe. They are a heavy burden, a physical manifestation of everything you've endured, and they remind you that even when the fighting stops, the war within still leaves its indelible marks. The scent hits you first, a delicate mix of dried lavender and clean linen, so startlingly fresh after years of dust, blood, and stale fear that it almost makes you recoil. You're standing in a small, familiar room, the fire and the hearth casting dancing shadows, when you feel a gentle presence behind you. A hand, soft and warm, settles lightly on your shoulder. Your entire body tenses, a jolt of ingrained instinct making every muscle coil, ready to react, to shove away, to defend. But the hand remains, feather light, unthreatening. You turn slowly, your movements stiff, like a rusted hinge. It's her, your wife. Her eyes, filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation, search your face, trying to find the man she knew beneath the hard lines and weary gaze. Her lips are soft, slightly parted, a ghost of a smile playing there. She steps closer, the warmth radiating from her a stark contrast to the perpetual cold that seems to have settled deep within your bones. You watch her, your expression unreadable, your mind a blank slate where memories of her used to be vivid. She lifts her arms, slowly, her movements hesitant, as if she fears you might shatter. Then, she wraps them around you. The soft wool of her tunic presses against your own rough clothes, a strange, unexpected texture. Her body is yielding, pliant, utterly unlike the rigid, armored forms you've grown accustomed to in battle. You feel the gentle curve of her back, the lightness of her touch, the delicate pressure of her head against your chest. A faint, almost forgotten warmth begins to spread, not through you, but around you, like a thin blanket that can't quite penetrate the ice. You stand there, rigid, your own arms hanging awkwardly at your sides, your hands, calloused and scarred, accustomed to gripping sword hilts or reins. Feel clumsy, unsure what to do with this softness, this vulnerability. You feel the steady beat of her heart against your ribs, a slow, peaceful rhythm that feels alien compared to the frantic drum of your own. Her breath is soft against your neck, a warmth that prickles your skin, a sensation you haven't felt in so long that it feels entirely new, almost intrusive. This embrace, meant to be a comfort, a reunion, feels like a foreign language your body has forgotten how to speak. Her touch is familiar, yet it registers as a stranger's. You are here, in her arms, in your home, but the gap between you, forged in years of blood and steel, feels vast, unbridgeable. Your back, yes, but only your body. The man she holds is a ghost, haunted by a past she cannot comprehend, and this quiet embrace only serves to highlight how utterly lost you are, even here, in the place you once called peace. The heavy wooden door groans shut behind you, sealing out the biting chill of the evening. Inside, the great hall is vast, far larger than you remember, a cavernous space where shadows cling to the high rafters like forgotten ghosts. A central hearth crackles, sending plumes of smoke curling towards the unseen opening in the roof, but its heat struggles against the sheer volume of air, leaving a pervasive damp cold that chills you to the bone. The scent of wood smoke is here too, but it's thin, almost watery, mingling with an odd, faint aroma of desperation and something else you can't quite place. Stale hopes, maybe. You find yourself at a long, scarred table, its surface worn smooth by generations of hands. Before you, a wooden bowl, chipped at the rim, holds a meager serving of stew. You pick up the heavy, unpolished spoon. It feels strange, civilian, in your grasp. The stew itself is thin, watery, reflecting the weak firelight like a murky pond. Steam rises, carrying a faint, earthy smell of turnip and something indefinable, something lean and spare. You lift the spoon, the broth sloshing precariously, and bring it to your lips. The taste is bland, almost insipid. A few limp vegetables, mostly roots, float sadly in the pale liquid. There's a faint, almost ghost-like hint of meat, but it's more suggestion than substance, like a memory of flavor rather than the flavor itself. It's nourishing, yes, in the barest sense, but it lacks the rich, fatty satisfaction of a campaign meal, even the coarse fare cooked over an open fire on dusty ground. That food, for all its grit and grime, at least had a purpose, a raw energy for raw survival. This feels diminished. You chew slowly, each bite a deliberate act, your jaw aching with the effort of simply existing. The great hall echoes with the rustle of movements from others, indistinct shapes in the gloom. You don't look up. Their hushed murmurs are like distant static, easily ignored. You're aware of eyes on you, glances that quickly avert when you even hint at acknowledging them. They watch you, the sackclothal hero returned, but there's no celebration in their gaze, no joyous relief. Only a wary curiosity, perhaps even fear. This hall, you recall, was once vibrant, filled with laughter, with the boisterous clang of feasting, with stories of old glories. Now it feels too large, too silent, a grand stage set for a feast that never quite materializes. The thin stew slides down your throat, doing little to warm the emptiness inside you. You're home, in a place built to celebrate strength and triumph, but all you feel is the hollowness of its current state, and the chilling realization that perhaps the hero they expected never truly existed, or was broken beyond recognition long before he stepped back through these doors. This meal is a mirror, reflecting not just the scarcity of the present, but the stark, bitter truth of your own return. You lift your gaze from the meager, thin stew, drawn by a small, hesitant shuffle of movement in the shadowy corners of the great hall. Two small figures emerge from the gloom, their forms slight and uncertain, like woodland creatures peeking from cover. Your son, barely past toddlerhood, clutches the tunic of his older sister, who must be nearing 7 now. Their eyes, wide and luminous in the dim firelight, fix on you across the worn wooden table. You see it instantly, in the way their small shoulders are hunched, in the slight backward pull of their heads. Not joy, not recognition, but a profound, unblinking apprehension. They stare at the gaunt, scarred man sitting where their father should be. Their mouths are tight, unsmiling, innocent faces etched with a wary curiosity that borders on fear. Your own name, a soft, almost foreign sound, escapes the girl's lips, a tentative whisper that seems to hang in the damp air before dissolving. You try to offer a smile, a gesture of comfort, but the muscles in your face feel stiff, unused to such an expression. It comes out as a grimace, a slight parting of your lips that only serves to highlight the harsh lines around your eyes, the permanent shadows beneath them. Your son, seeing this, lets out a tiny, stifled whimper and buries his face deeper into his sister's side. The girl's eyes, however, remain locked on yours, a flicker of something resembling bewildered sorrow in their depths. Your large, calloused hand, so often stained with the grit of battle, lifts slowly, an involuntary gesture, as if to reach out, to reassure, but it stops, hovering awkwardly in the air. What would you do if they came closer? Would your rough touch frighten them more? Would the smell of old campaign on your clothes, a scent you can no longer detect, drive them away? You feel the vast distance between you, not just in the expanse of the hall, but in the chasm of years and experiences that have separated you from these small, fragile beings. Their mother appears then, a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder, a silent signal for them to retreat. The children turn, slowly, still casting wary glances over their shoulders as they disappear back into the shadows, their small feet barely disturbing the rushes on the floor. You watch them go, a hollow ache spreading through your chest. The warmth you'd hoped for, the reunion you'd dreamed of, shatters into 1,000 cold pieces. These are your children, your blood, yet in their eyes you are nothing but a stranger, a brutal ghost from a land of war. And you realize with a chilling clarity that this is perhaps the cruelest wound of all, to return home, only to find you no longer belong, not even to your own. The cold, raw wood of the plow handles digs into your palms, rough and unforgiving. It's an unfamiliar sensation, utterly different from the polished grip of a sword or the smooth, worn leather of a shield strap. You wrap your fingers around the thick wood, the splinters threatening your calloused skin, and brace yourself. This tool, this implement of sustenance, feels monstrously heavy, an inert weight that seems to resist your very will. It's not the dynamic, responsive heft of a weapon, but a dead, unyielding mass that mocks your strength. Your grip tightens, your knuckles white, trying to impose your will on this stubborn piece of timber and iron. You take a deep breath, the crisp morning air biting at your lungs, and lean into the harness. The leather straps chafe against your shoulders, a different kind of burden than plate armor, but no less demanding. With a guttural grunt, you push forward. The metal plowshare, dark with mud and age, scrapes against the hardened earth. It doesn't bite, not properly. It skips, tearing shallow, uneven furrows, then snags on a hidden stone or a stubborn root, jarring your entire frame. Your back screams in protest, muscles straining, ligaments pulled taut. These muscles remember swinging a heavy axe, parrying a thrust, enduring the shock of impact. They do not remember this slow, grinding, relentless push against the very ground, this constant, dull resistance. Your feet sink into the cold, damp soil with each laborious step, making a sucking sound as you extract them. Mud clings to your boots, making every movement heavier, slower, as if the earth itself is trying to hold you captive. The raw wind whips around you, carrying the sharp, almost metallic scent of freshly turned earth, a smell that should feel welcoming, like home, but instead feels utterly alien, a reminder of everything you've forgotten. You glance over your shoulder, seeing a neighbor a few fields over, their plow moving with an effortless rhythmic precision that makes your own clumsy, agonizing efforts feel pathetic. They don't quite meet your eye, but you feel their sidelong gaze, a silent assessment of the warrior who has forgotten how to sow, a pity that burns hotter than any battle scar. You try again, focusing your strength, channeling the brute force you once used to break enemy lines into this simple, fundamental task. You lean harder, pushing until your breath comes in ragged gasps, until sweat beads on your brow, despite the persistent chill. The plowshare grinds, finally digging deeper, but each foot of progress is a battle, a fierce contest against the stubborn, unyielding earth. Your hands begin to ache, then burn, then grow numb, a familiar pain, but one tied to a completely unfamiliar purpose. The cold iron of the plow seems to sap the warmth from your very soul, replacing it with a creeping dread of inadequacy. This isn't a quick, decisive clash. This is a war of attrition, fought against something far more patient and enduring than any enemy soldier. The earth yields, but slowly, begrudgingly, demanding a different kind of strength, a kind you realize you no longer possess, or perhaps never truly did. You thought you knew labor, you knew hardship, but this feels like a new battlefield entirely. One where the enemy is the very soil beneath your feet, and your weapons are dull, clumsy, and foreign. The plow, this symbol of peace, feels heavier than any burden of war, a relentless reminder that home, too, has its own brutal demands. The scent of cured leather, faint and musky, reaches you as you sit by the flickering hearth. A piece of horsetack, a bridle strap frayed near the buckle, lies before you. It needs mending. A simple task, one your father would have completed with swift, practiced movements. You pick up a length of thin, sturdy cord meant to bind the torn leather. Your fingers, however, feel monstrously large, clumsy as if they belong to someone else. They are thick, scarred, and unyielding, more akin to gnarled roots than instruments of delicate repair. You try to thread the cord through a small, punched hole in the leather. The tip of the cord frays, resisting your attempts. You pinch it between your thumb and forefinger, but your grip, accustomed to the solid, unyielding feel of a sword hilt, is too powerful, too rough. The cord crushes, its fibers splaying, refusing to pass through the tiny opening. You feel a tremor run through your hand, a faint, involuntary shake that has nothing to do with cold, but everything to do with years of holding a weapon taut, anticipating a blow, adrenaline coursing through your veins. That tremor makes precision impossible. You exhale slowly, a ragged sound, and try again. You lick the end of the cord, trying to stiffen it, but it still bends and frays under your powerful, clumsy touch. You remember the effortless way you once adjusted the grip on your blade, the quick, precise movements required to parry a swift thrust, the delicate balance of weight and leverage. These hands were once extensions of a deadly will, capable of intricate violence. Now, faced with the simple task of mending, they feel utterly useless, betraying you. You see a glance from across the room, a quick, almost pitying look from a woman weaving by the window, her fingers dancing with nimble grace over the loom. She doesn't speak, but her expression is clear. The warrior has forgotten the hands of peace. Your brow furrows in frustration, a wave of heat rising in your chest. You grip the cord tighter, trying to force it, but it only frays further, a testament to your inability. These hands, once your pride, your instruments of survival, now feel like anchors, dragging you down, refusing to adapt. They are still strong, yes, but their strength is brute, unrefined, ill-suited for the quiet, delicate work of rebuilding. You stare at the useless cord, then at your own rough, calloused palms, a grim realization settling deep within you. The hilt of a sword once felt like a natural extension, a part of your very being. Now, even the simplest tool of peace feels like a foreign object, held by hands that remember only the language of war. The battle for home is fought with different tools, and your hands are utterly unprepared. You bolt upright in the dark, a cold sweat plastering your thin nightshirt to your skin. The sound isn't real, not really, but it pierces through the heavy silence of the night like a spear, a guttural, desperate scream. Not a single voice, but a chorus of them, entangled, raw with terror and agony. It's the shriek of a man struck down, the wail of a child separated, the desperate cry of a woman cornered. It echoes in your skull, vibrates in your bones, a phantom cacophony that feels utterly, terrifyingly present. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive quiet of the room. Your lungs burn, gasping for air that feels suddenly thin, insufficient. You scramble backward against the wall, your hands instinctively reaching for a sword hilt that isn't there, your fingers closing around empty air, then clenching into useless fists. Your eyes dart wildly in the absolute blackness, trying to locate the source of the screams, searching for the threat, for the enemy that you know with chilling certainty is not truly here. Beside you, your wife stirs, a soft sigh escaping her lips as she rolls over, still deep in the undisturbed sleep of the innocent. Her even breathing, the gentle rustle of the rough linen sheets, are the only real sounds in the room, a stark contrast to the auditory hallucination that continues to rip through your mind. The scent of her clean hair, of the sleeping chamber, is supposed to ground you, but it feels distant, unreal, overshadowed by the stench of burning wood and fresh blood that your memory conjures with terrifying vividness. You press the heels of your hands into your eyes, trying to force the sounds away, trying to push back the encroaching images of chaos and death that accompany them. You taste bile at the back of your throat, a metallic tang of fear. The room, which felt so safe only moments before, now feels like a tomb, trapping you with these spectral tormentors. You force your eyes open, blinking into the darkness, willing yourself to see the familiar unmoving shapes of furniture, the faint outline of the window against the deeper black of the sky. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, the screams begin to recede, like a tide pulling back from a blood-soaked shore. They fade not into silence, but into a hollow ringing in your ears, a residual hum of terror that leaves your body trembling, drenched in a cold, clammy sweat. You remain upright, hunched against the wall, listening to the steady beat of your own wild heart, listening to the soft, steady breaths of your wife. The terror may have retreated, but the memory of its invasion lingers, a stark reminder that even in the deepest slumber of peace, the war you carried home still finds a way to rage within you. You are back, but peace remains an elusive, fragile thing, a battlefield of the mind. You claw your way out of sleep, gasping, a raw, rasping sound tearing from your throat, as if you've been running for miles across sun-baked dunes. The bedclothes are tangled, damp with a chilling sweat, clinging to your skin like burial shrouds. A phantom grit coats your tongue, parched and rough, a taste of endless sand and thirst that gnaws at you even here, in the cool, damp air of your sleeping chamber. Your eyes snap open, but the darkness behind them still shimmers with the relentless heat of a desert sun, a mirage of torment. You push yourself up, your muscles screaming not from present effort, but from the memory of endless marching, of heavy armor under a relentless sun. Your head spins with a profound disorientation. For a terrifying beat, you don't know where you are. Is this a tent in the wasteland, the wind whipping sand against the canvas? Or a ruined building, still baking after a long day? Your hand goes to your chest, feeling the frantic hammer of your heart, then brushes against the cold sweat that coats your brow, a stark contrast to the burning heat that still seems to radiate from deep within your bones. You stumble from the bed, your bare feet meeting the cold, hard stone floor. The unexpected chill is a jolt, a physical anchor to this reality, yet your mind is still caught in the suffocating heat, the bone-dry air of the phantom desert. You reach for the water pitcher, your fingers fumbling, desperate for a real drink, to wash away the imagined dust. You pour a small amount into a cup, the sound of the liquid splashing strangely loud in the quiet room. You lift it to your lips, the cool water a shock, a sudden blessed relief that finally begins to quench the ghost of that ancient thirst. As you drink, your eyes adjust to the deep shadows. You see the familiar, rough-hewn beams of your ceiling, the solid wooden chest at the foot of your bed, the shape of your wife, sleeping undisturbed beside you, her breaths soft and even. The smell of old wood and the faint hint of cooking hearth from the evening before slowly replace the phantom scent of acrid smoke and sweat-stained leather. But even as the true reality asserts itself, the feeling of that cold, clammy sweat on your skin, the phantom grit in your mouth, and the ghost of the desert's oppressive heat linger. You stand there, shivering slightly, even after the water warms your throat, feeling the chill of a medieval night mingle with the lingering burn of a distant, endless day. You are home, but your body, your very core, is still out there, lost in a phantom desert. It's a bitter truth. Even when you escape the sands never truly leave you. They become a part of you, etched into your very being, always waiting to return in the dead of night, bringing their brutal memories back to haunt your hard-won peace. The clang of steel on steel strikes you, a sharp, resonant blow that reverberates through the very ground beneath your feet. You stand at the entrance of the blacksmith's forge, the air thick with the acrid scent of coal smoke, hot metal, and sweat. Heat radiates from the glowing coals of the forge, licking at your face, a familiar, intense warmth that prickles your skin. The light inside is a constant, pulsating orange, casting stark, dancing shadows that stretch and shrink with every pump of the bellows, every strike of the hammer. The blacksmith, a burly figure whose face is perpetually grimed, grips a length of red-hot iron with tongs. He raises a heavy hammer, his muscles bulging, and brings it down with a powerful, practiced swing. The sound hits you, deep and penetrating, but there's something off. It echoes, yes, filling the small, enclosed space, but it also carries an unsettling undertone, a peculiar emptiness. It sounds hollow, not the crisp, solid ring of steel being expertly shaped, but a sound that seems to absorb light, to carry a void within it. You watch his movements, the rhythmic rise and fall of his arm, the sparks that shower like tiny, angry stars with each impact. Your own hands twitch, remembering the weight of a warhammer, the precise moment to strike. But this isn't war, this is creation, shaping, mending. Yet the sound, meant to be industrious, carries a mournful quality, like a bell rung underwater. It speaks of something broken that cannot be truly fixed, only reshaped, its former integrity lost forever. The blacksmith glances up, his eyes meeting yours for a fleeting moment. A quick nod, a silent acknowledgement, then his gaze drops back to the fiery metal. He doesn't ask about your return, doesn't offer platitudes. He just works, the hollow slice and knock, continuing its relentless rhythm. You notice the new tools hanging on the wall, shining untouched. The forge itself seems smaller, older than you remember, the anvil scarred, pitted by countless years of blows. You step further into the forge, drawn by the warmth, by the stark, raw honesty of the work. The metallic tang in the air becomes stronger, a coppery taste on your tongue. Each hammer blow lands, vibrating through your chest, a dull ache rather than a forceful assertion. This sound, this core rhythm of the village, should feel grounding, a testament to enduring life. Instead, it feels like a wound, an echo of something that was, a constant reminder that even the strongest metal, when hammered and reshaped too many times, eventually thins, loses its original temper, and rings with a profound, unfixable hollowness. The forge works, the hammer strikes, but the ring it produces is not the sound of healing, but of a persistent internal emptiness. The heat in the forge feels different now, not just a brute warmth, but something sharper, more focused, almost predatory. You stand closer to the anvil, drawn by the insistent rhythm of the hammer, a rhythm that seems to be pulling something dark from the very heart of the metal. The blacksmith, his face slick with sweat, is hunched over a small, intricate piece of iron. The air around him shimmers, blurring his movements as he works. The scent of sulfur from the coals is potent, clinging to your tongue. A bitter, metallic taste that seems to coat your teeth. You watch as he quenches the piece in a trough of water. A hiss, a violent burst of steam, and then he pulls it out, the iron now black and stark. It's not a plowshare, not a nail, not a sword. This object is slender, elongated, with a finely sharpened, wicked point. It has a delicate curve to its shape, a subtle twist that suggests an unnatural purpose. Your eyes follow the gleam on its edge, reflecting the forge's dying embers. It's too thin for a weapon, too refined for a simple tool, yet its intent feels undeniably hostile. The blacksmith begins to file the edges, the rasping sound of metal against stone sending a shiver down your spine. He works with an almost tender precision, honing the tip until it gleams like a sliver of moonlight. He's shaping it, not for strength but for penetration, for causing specific targeted pain. You feel a cold knot tighten in your stomach, a recognition dawning on you. You've seen implements like this before, in the hands of guards, used for less honorable purposes than battle, for extracting information, for marking. He holds it up, turning it over in his calloused fingers, admiring his grim craft. There's a faint, almost imperceptible nod from a figure lurking in the deeper shadows of the forge, a local bailiff, perhaps, or a lord's enforcer, their face indistinct in the gloom. The gesture is curt, satisfied. The blacksmith wraps the honed tool in a scrap of leather, the metal still warm, radiating a faint, chilling heat. This isn't for mending or fighting. It's for breaking. It's for control. You turn away, the smell of hot iron now sickeningly heavy in your lungs. The relentless brutality of the Crusades was a raw, visceral thing, a clear enemy, clear purpose. Here, in the quiet heart of your village, in the skilled hands of a craftsman, a new kind of cruelty is being forged, cold and precise, designed to flay and mark, not to kill outright, but to dominate. You came home hoping for a new life, for peace, for growth. Instead, you found a different kind of war, insidious and domestic, where even the tools of creation are turned to darker ends. The forge isn't just shaping metal, it's shaping the harsh new reality of your return. The thick, yeasty smell of stale ale and unwashed bodies hits you the moment you step into the common room of the tavern. It's a heavy, cloying scent, a stark contrast to the clean, cold air outside. The fire in the central hearth sputters, casting more smoke than light, shrouding the room in a permanent twilight. The rough, wooden benches and tables are scarred with countless spilled drinks and the passage of restless hands. You take a seat at the furthest, darkest corner, away from the flickering light and the boisterous chatter. A serving girl, her face tired and smudged, slides a chipped ceramic mug across the table. The ale is dark, almost black, with a thin, unappealing head of foam. You lift it to your lips, the pottery rough against your skin. The taste is profoundly bitter, a harsh, metallic tang that lingers on your tongue, Not the rich, mellow bitterness of a good brew, but something thin, almost acidic. It's a flavor that promises little comfort, only a dulling. As you sip, your ears are assaulted by the cacophony of voices. Men, ruddy-faced and loud, are gathered around another table, their mugs slamming down with cheerful abandon. Their laughter is sharp, unburdened. They speak of local feuds, of strong harvests, of small, everyday triumphs. Then, their conversation shifts, their voices growing louder, more animated, taking on a theatrical tone. They begin to tell stories of valor, of heroic deeds, of battles fought and enemies vanquished. Their eyes gleam with imagined glory, their gestures sweeping and exaggerated. You listen, a grimace tightening your jaw. You hear descriptions of swords clashing, of arrows flying, of daring charges. They speak of enemies with contempt, of their own courage with boundless pride. But their words are hollow, their understanding of such things gleaned from bards' tales and drunken boasts, not from the cold, brutal reality of a battlefield. Their eyes hold no distant terror, their hands no ingrained tremor, their faces no map of old wounds. They haven't known the smell of fear, the taste of blood, the bone-deep exhaustion that follows real slaughter. You take another long draught of the bitter ale, its harshness mirroring the gnawing frustration in your gut. These men, untouched by the true horrors of war, revel in its romanticized fiction. They posture, they exaggerate, building grand narratives from scraps of hearsay. You feel a familiar tightness in your chest, a dull, aching resentment. How easy it is for them to spin tales of heroism when they haven't seen a man's gut spilled on the sand, haven't heard the final gurgle of a dying enemy. Their boasts, so confidently delivered, feel like a mockery, a cruel joke played on the men who actually lived through it. You clench your jaw, the bitter ale doing little to soothe the sting. You came home hoping for understanding, for a shared silence, perhaps. Instead, you find only noisy ignorance, a stark chasm between your reality and their comfortable fantasies. The ale is bitter, but the realization that these men will never truly comprehend what you've seen, what you've done, is far more potent. You are here, among them, but you are a world apart, adrift in a sea of their empty, self-serving boasts. The loud, drunken din of the tavern, which moments ago hammered at your ears, abruptly ceases. It's not a gradual fade, but an instantaneous, jarring cut, like a musician silencing his lute mid-strum. The sudden vacuum of sound is deafening, pressing in on you harder than any noise. You feel the hairs on the back of your neck prickle, your shoulders hunching instinctively, preparing for impact. The air, thick with ale and smoke, feels taut, suddenly crackling with unspoken tension. Your gaze sweeps across the room, fast, practiced, searching for the source of this unnatural stillness. The boisterous men who were just bellowing their made-up battle tales are now frozen, mugs halfway to their lips, eyes wide and fixed on a single point near the tavern door. Their faces, previously flushed with ale and bravado, are now pale, stripped bare of their careless jocularity. Their postures are rigid, like statues caught mid-gesture, their breath held. No one dares to move, no one dares to speak. It's a collective intake of breath, a silent acknowledgement of something unsettling that has entered their world. Your own hand, without conscious thought, drops to your side, your fingers splaying, seeking a familiar weight. Not the heavy, comforting heft of your war sword, that's long gone, but the smaller, more intimate presence of the utility knife tucked into your belt. Your thumb brushes the rough leather of its sheath, your forefinger tracing the cool, smooth bone of its hilt. The subtle, reassuring grip of the weapon, however small, sends a jolt of familiar readiness through your arm, settling a sliver of the internal tremor that always accompanies such shifts in atmosphere. You don't pull it. Not yet. Your eyes, narrowed and sharp, scan the silent room, absorbing every minute detail. You see the glint of a dark cloak by the door, the heavy boots, the way a few villagers subtly shift their weight, ready to flee or defend. This stillness isn't peace. It's the quiet before a different kind of storm, a tension that speaks of local enforcers or perhaps something worse. The men around you, those boasting fools, now wear expressions you recognize all too well. The raw, animal fear of those facing real, immediate danger, stripped of their easy illusions. You watch them, your breath controlled, your grip on the knife a silent promise. This is what it truly feels like, this fragile peace, this constant vigilance. The sound of a sudden quiet, the flicker of fear in another's eyes, can instantly transport you back to the battlefield, turning a common tavern into a hostile landscape. You realize with a bitter clarity that the war isn't just in the distant lands you left. It's etched into your very being, always ready to rise, always ready to demand a response, even when home pretends it's forgotten how to fight. The scent of old wax, damp stone, and something faintly metallic, the lingering echo of incense and rust, fills your nostrils. You step into the church, the heavy wooden door creaking shut behind you, sealing out the raw bite of the winter wind. The air inside is cold, profoundly so, a persistent chill that seems to emanate from the very stones. Your breath clouds before you, a visible testament to the biting cold. You walk slowly down the central aisle, your heavy boots echoing eerily in the empty space. The sound reverberates, bouncing off the high vaulted ceilings, making the large chamber feel even more cavernous and desolate. There are no flickering candles, no soft murmurs of prayer, no comforting warmth, just this pervasive biting cold and the vast unsettling silence. You remember this place, a sanctuary from your youth, filled with light and reverence. Now it feels like a forgotten tomb. You stop before the altar, its stone surface bare and unadorned, stripped of much of its former grandeur. The crucifix above it is simple, stark, the figure of Christ looking particularly gaunt and suffering in the dim light filtering through the grimy leaded windows. You kneel, slowly, your knees cracking in protest against the cold, hard stone of the floor. The chill seeps through your breeches immediately, an icy penetration that numbs your skin and works its way deep into your bones. You press your palms flat against the cold stone, feeling its unyielding surface, its ancient, indifferent solidity. No warmth, no comfort, no hint of divine presence emanates from it. It's just rock, cold and hard. You bow your head, closing your eyes, trying to conjure a prayer, a plea for solace, for understanding. But the words catch in your throat, feeling hollow, meaningless. Your mind is a whirlwind of distant screams and the clanging of steel, not the quiet reverence of faith. You recall the fervent prayers offered on battlefields, desperate pleas for survival, for victory. Sometimes they felt answered. Here, in the heart of what should be sacred, there is only emptiness. The cold of the stone rises into your body, a visceral sensation that seems to mirror the chill in your soul. You look up at the gaunt Christ, his suffering a familiar companion. But there's no power here, no succor. Not for you. You stand slowly, your joints aching, the cold from the stone floor still clinging to your knees. The church, once a beacon of strength and hope, now feels abandoned, its power drained, as broken and empty as you feel yourself. You came seeking a different kind of strength, a spiritual comfort that transcended the brutality of the world. Instead, you find only more cold, more silence, and a stark reminder that some wounds are too deep for even faith to mend. This place, like you, has been ravaged by a war it could not comprehend. A thin, sweet tendril of incense curls into your nostrils, a delicate, almost cloying scent of frankincense and myrrh. It drifts through the cold, cavernous church, rising from a small, smoking censer held by a frail, old priest. The aroma should be comforting, purifying, a balm to the soul in this sacred space. But beneath its ethereal sweetness, your senses, sharpened by years of brutality, detect something far deeper, far more insidious. It's the phantom stench of death. It's faint, a whisper, but undeniable to you. A metallic tang of dried blood, the cloying sweetness of decay, the acrid burn of flesh on fire, all woven subtly into the hallowed air. The incense is a flimsy veil, stretched taut over an abyss of unimaginable horror. Your stomach clenches, a wave of nausea rising in your throat, tasting of dust and ash. You instinctively lift a hand to your mouth, as if to ward off a visible miasma, your breath catching in your chest. You watch the priest, his movements slow and deliberate, as he swings the censer, sending plumes of the sweet smoke swirling higher. His face, serene and deeply lined, shows no hint of the foulness you perceive. He is oblivious, or perhaps deliberately ignorant. The handful of villagers scattered in the pews, their heads bowed, seem equally unaffected, breathing in the holy scent without a tremor. They feel the comforting illusion, while you are choked by the stark reality it attempts to conceal. Your eyes dart around the church, seeing the shadows twist and writhe, morphing into fleeting images. The piled bodies after a siege, the charred remains of a burned village, the glistening red on the sands of a faraway land. The incense, meant to evoke heaven, instead rips open the gates of your personal hell, each puff stirring up a fresh wave of visceral memory. You can almost feel the sticky ground beneath your feet, hear the flies buzzing, taste the fear. The sweetness of the incense becomes a torment, mocking the unspeakable putrefaction it so weakly tries to banish. You press your palms together, hard, as if to physically squeeze the stench from your mind, but it's no use. It clings to you, a part of you now permeating your very being. This place, this church, cannot cleanse what you've seen, what you've done, what you've become. The scent of incense, once a promise of purity, now only serves to highlight the inescapable, enduring stench of death that forever clings to your soul. A grim reminder that some stains cannot be washed away, some odors cannot be masked. You realize with a chilling clarity that this is the real penance, to perceive the rot beneath all the beauty, a truth no incense can ever sanctify. The air in the Lord's solar is thick, with a scent of aged parchment, beeswax, and a faint, cloying sweetness of spiced wine. It's a heavy, stagnant warmth, clinging to the velvet tapestries and polished oak furniture, a stark contrast to the raw, biting wind you just left outside. You stand before a massive stone fireplace, its ornate carving a testament to wealth, not utility, for the fire within does little to cut the deep-seated chill of the castle. Your lord sits behind a massive carved desk, his body cushioned by furs and fine wool. His hands, soft and uncalloused, are adorned with rings that gleam in the firelight. He speaks, his voice a smooth, modulated baritone, his words carefully chosen, each syllable delivered with an air of absolute authority. He gestures with a precise, almost delicate movement of his hand, indicating a map spread before him. tracing a line with a jeweled finger. He is outlining a dispute, a minor encroachment on his lands, a slight against his dignity by a neighboring smaller lord. He then turns his gaze to you, his eyes a pale, watery blue, devoid of the hardened wisdom you've seen in the eyes of true commanders. You, he says, his voice taking on a sharper, more imperious tone, will see to it that these boundaries are respected. Assemble a patrol. Make an example. Let them understand the cost of their insolence. His words hang in the air, crisp and clear, a command. But as he speaks, you feel a strange, disorienting disconnect. The sounds of his voice are perfectly audible, yet the words themselves seem to drift past you, light and insubstantial, like snowflakes in a gale. They lack weight. They hold no true resonance. There's no hint of imminent danger, no scent of desperation, no raw edge of survival in his voice. You stand there, your body rigid, a faint tremor running through your hands, not of fear, but of an almost bitter amusement. You remember commands barked over the din of battle, raw and guttural, each word a matter of life and death, thick with sweat and fear and the promise of impending bloodshed. You remember orders given in hushed whispers in the dead of night, outlining desperate sorties, the very air vibrating with urgency. Those words, those commands, carried the weight of steel, the stench of unburied dead, the screams of the dying. They were real, visceral things. But this polite pronouncement of minor grievance and imagined insult feels like a child's game, a play-acted drama. You nod, a stiff, almost imperceptible dip of your head. Your eyes, shadowed and weary, meet his for a moment, and you see a flicker of impatience, a demand for unquestioning obedience. But you also see a profound ignorance, a man who has never truly understood the chilling gravitas of a real command, nor the brutal cost of enforcing it. His words are empty, hollow, reverberating only within the comfortable confines of his own petty kingdom. You came home to find your lord, but you found only a hollow voice echoing through an empty hall, demanding a violence he himself has never truly known. You stand before your lord's desk, the remnants of his command still echoing in the stifling air of his solar. He leans back into his furs, a self-satisfied expression settling on his soft features, his pale eyes studying you with an expectant air, as if waiting for a visible affirmation of your subservience. He is a man accustomed to his authority going unquestioned, to his every word carrying absolute weight within these castle walls. But you've served a different master, one whose commands were written in blood, hunger, and the cold indifference of the desert wind. You meet his gaze, your own eyes, deep-set and weary, unblinking. You don't flinch, don't drop your gaze, don't offer the subtle, deferential nod he expects. You simply stare, absorbing his features, the slight double chin, the plumpness of his hands resting on the desk, the smooth, unlined expanse of his brow. There's a faint scent of expensive, spiced wine clinging to him, a fragrance of ease and indulgence. You register it all, processing it with the detached precision you once reserved for assessing an enemy's weaknesses, a battlefield's terrain. He shifts slightly, a flicker of something almost akin to discomfort, passing through his pale eyes. He clears his throat, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. You see the faint tremor in his soft hands as he repositions a heavy signet ring, a tiny, revealing sign of unease beneath his veneer of lordly authority. This man, with his cushioned life and his petty disputes, issues commands that feel like whispers compared to the roaring, undeniable commands of survival you've known. Death itself was your general, fear your sergeant, and hunger your merciless quartermaster. Those masters taught you truths he could never fathom. Your body, stiff and scarred, doesn't betray any outward defiance, yet an internal resolve hardens within you, a silent, unshakable refusal to grant him the absolute deference he craves. You remember the raw, urgent terror of a starving child's cry, the brutal efficiency of a sword blow that ended a life, the chilling silence that followed a lost battle. Those were commands you understood, demands that left no room for question, no space for soft pronouncements from comfortable halls. A muscle twitches in your jaw, the only outward sign of the bitter clarity that washes over you. This man, for all his inherited power, for all his fine clothes and scented air, knows nothing of true command. He has never been truly commanded by anything beyond his own petty whims and inherited traditions. You served a harsher master, one who stripped away all illusions, all comforts, and left only the raw, brutal truth of existence. His gaze cannot penetrate that truth, nor can his words truly sway a man who has faced the unblinking, indifferent stare of death itself, and lived to tell the tale. You are his subject, yes, but your spirit, hardened by fire and blood, bows to a different, far more demanding authority. The air in the cold church is thick with the lingering scent of damp stone and a faint sweet overlay of incense, now stale. You approach the small, ornate altar, your boots clicking softly on the flagstones. There, under a faded velvet cloth, sits a small, gilded reliquary, intricately carved with figures of saints and angels. A sliver of polished quartz, set within the silver filigree, allows a glimpse of its contents. Inside, resting on a bed of aged silk, lies a blackened fragment of wood, no bigger than your thumb, purportedly a piece of the true cross. You reach out, your fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface of the quartz. It feels utterly inert, lifeless, beneath your touch. No warmth, no divine energy, just the cold indifference of glass and ancient wood. The scent of the church, meant to be holy, instead feels like a perfume attempting to mask something far deeper, far more rotten. Your eyes, accustomed to seeking truth in the chaos of battle, stare at the relic, seeing not a holy artifact, but a simple, brittle piece of timber. You remember the countless times you stood with other men, armor gleaming, blades sharpened, as priests held similar relics aloft, blessing you, promising divine protection, assuring victory in God's name. You remember the fervent prayers, the desperate hopes, the cries of Deus Vult, echoing across vast sun-baked plains. The promises were whispered, shouted, sung, all invoking the power of such sacred objects. Then you remember the screams, the searing pain of a Saracen blade, the endless thirst, the stench of bodies piled high, Christian and infidel alike, rotting under a merciless sun, their prayers unanswered, their holy relics providing no shield against steel, nor plague, nor starvation. You recall the faces of men, devout men, bleeding out on dusty ground, their dying eyes fixed on some distant, uncaring heaven, their faith, and yours, shattering with their last breath. You pull your hand back from the reliquary, a bitter taste rising in your mouth, sharp and metallic. This fragment of wood, held up as a beacon of hope and power, feels like a cruel jest. It told lies, silent, insidious lies, promising divine intervention, where there was only the brutal, indifferent reality of combat. The reverence of the few villagers kneeling in the distant pews, their heads bowed in unquestioning faith, feels like a betrayal, a clinging to illusions that cost so many lives. You turn away, the cold stone of the church now reflecting the cold, hard emptiness in your chest. This holy relic, this symbol of faith, now represents not salvation but the profound, unholy truth of what you experienced. It stands as a monument to the bitter deception, a chilling reminder that even the most sacred objects can become tainted with the unkept promises and the endless, crushing weight of forgotten suffering. You came back, yes, but your faith, like so many lives, was left to rot in a distant, unforgiving land. Your fingers, thick and scarred, find purchase in a hidden pouch sewn deep within the lining of your tunic. The immediate sensation is one of startling coolness, a sharp contrast to the persistent chill that seems to cling to your very bones in this drafty, familiar hall. You draw your hand back slowly, carefully, opening your palm to reveal a small, heavy clutch of foreign coins. These are not the rough, common copper or the tarnished silver of your homeland. No, these gleam with a dull, ancient gold. Others with a curious, lustrous alloy unlike any metal you've seen worked in these quiet northern lands. They hold a dense, unfamiliar weight, a heft that feels somehow heavier than their size suggests. As you bring them closer, a faint, almost imperceptible scent reaches you. A metallic tang, yes, but woven with something else. Something sweet and sickly, like long-forgotten spice mixed with the acrid coppery reek of dried blood. You turn them over with your thumb, your calloused skin tracing the smooth, alien etchings on their surfaces. Intricate Arabic script, the precise, elegant curves of a distant, conquered world. Each coin, cool and hard, feels like a miniature shard of ice against your skin, and with its touch, a torrent of fragmented, brutal images crashes over you. You're no longer in this quiet hall. You see a sun-baked marketplace, not of bustling trade, but of chaotic, desperate looting after the city walls gave way. The frantic, terrified glint of a torch on a woman's face as she tried to shield her meager possessions. You remember the desperate scrabble for anything of value, the frantic fumbling in a dead merchant's purse, your own hand, quick and brutal, seizing these very pieces while others fought over scraps. The low, animalistic growl from a comrade, his eyes wild with hunger and avarice, as you jostled for a better position. The fleeting, ugly satisfaction of having something, anything, after endless months of deprivation. The grim necessity of taking what was not yours. A profoundly bitter taste floods your mouth then, sharper than the cheapest, most acrid wine. These coins, once a small, tangible triumph in a world of starvation and savage violence, now feel like a festering, unhealing wound in your palm. They are a physical, immutable reminder of the darkest corners of your own survival, of the stark, brutal lines you crossed without hesitation, the unyielding desperation that warped you beyond recognition. They hold no warmth of honest gain, no true promise of a peaceful future. Instead, they hum with the persistent memory of fear, of raw greed, of the unforgiving brutality you embraced to simply stay alive in a land where conventional morality withered and died. Under a merciless, indifferent sun, you clench your fist, the hard, foreign edges of the coins digging deep into your skin, a dull, physical pain that barely registers against the deeper, colder ache within you. Here, in this quiet, struggling village, they are worse than useless. They are foreign, a potential mark of suspicion, a whispered rumor of ill-gotten gains, or even worse. They cannot buy you genuine peace, cannot mend the fractured family you return to, cannot warm the cold, struggling hearth of your home. They are simply relics of a self you wish, desperately, to forget, yet they cling to you, an undeniable weight, demanding to be remembered. You bought your survival with blood, with violence, with an unforgivable desperation. And these coins, these beautiful, cursed tokens, are the poisoned payment, an eternal, tangible reminder that some treasures are not blessings, but indelible curses, forever staining your hands and forever tainting the hard-won present with the brutal, inescapable truth of your past. The heavy oaken door groans inwards, releasing a gust of stale, musty air that prickles your nostrils, a choking blend of forgotten dust, damp plaster, and the lingering scent of slow decay. You step into the manor, or what remains of it. The great hall is a cavernous shell, colder than the winter air outside, a chilling testament to long neglect. Patches of plaster have fallen from the high walls, revealing skeletal laths, and the once vibrant tapestries hang in tattered strips, their colors faded to ghostly hues. Each step you take on the flagstone floor sends a hollow echo reverberating through the vast emptiness, a sound that underscores the manor's profound silence. But the silence isn't absolute. Beneath the groan of settling timber and the whisper of drafts stealing through broken window panes, you detect a low, insistent hum of voices. They are not loud, not accusatory shouts, but rather a constant, insidious murmur, like a nest of disturbed vipers. You hear them before you see them, these hushed conversations. A rustling of parchment, the soft, rhythmic click of counting beads. These are the whispers of creditors, gathered like vultures, circling the bones of your legacy. You walk towards the source of the sound, your boots crunching faintly on fallen debris, the sound feeling unnaturally loud. Through an archway, into what was once your father's study, you see them. 3 figures, cloaked in dark wool, are huddled around a rickety table, strewn with ledgers and scrolls. Their faces are obscured by shadow and hoods, but their gestures are sharp, precise, their fingers pointing at faded ink, their heads nodding in grim agreement. Their presence feels like a physical weight, pressing down on the damp, cold air, making it thick and suffocating. One of them looks up, his eyes glinting briefly in the dim light, a predatory spark that makes your stomach clench. He doesn't speak, but his gaze is a question, a demand, a silent assertion of their ownership. You feel a familiar tension creep into your shoulders, the old instinct to reach for a blade, to fight, to protect what is yours. But there is no clear enemy here, no visible weapon to draw against. Only whispers and parchment, and the cold, unyielding weight of numbers. You clench your jaw, the bitter taste of helplessness coating your tongue. This ruined manor, once a symbol of your family's strength, now feels like a cage, its crumbling walls closing in, not to imprison you from outside threats, but to hold you hostage to these quiet, calculating men. Their whispers, so soft, are louder than any war cry you've ever heard, a constant gnawing reminder of a battle you never saw coming, a defeat forged not in steel, but in the slow, agonizing decay of time and debt. You returned home to fight for your legacy, only to find it already lost, bought and sold by the chilling rustle of paper and the relentless, suffocating pressure of these silent, unyielding claims. The cold, raw wind whips across your face, stinging your eyes, carrying with it the undeniable scent of empty winter. You stand at the edge of what should be your fields, but all you see are barren, frozen clods of earth, dark and unforgiving. No hint of green, no promise of growth. The ground beneath your worn boots is hard, unyielding, each step a dull, heavy thud against the frozen soil. It's a landscape of utter desolation, a cruel testament to a harvest that failed, to years of neglect, to hope that withered under an uncaring sky. The bitter taste of despair coats your tongue, thick and metallic, as you survey the land that was once your family's sustenance, now just a vast, cold expanse of debt. You hear footsteps crunching behind you, slow and deliberate, on the frosted ground. You don't need to turn to know who it is. The sharp, cloying scent of cheap wool and something vaguely official, old parchment and condescension, precedes him. It's the bailiff, his bulk a dark silhouette against the pale, low winter sun. His voice, when he finally speaks, a dry, reedy rasp. He recites figures, amounts owed, percentages due from a harvest that never came. His hand, soft and plump, reaches out, a demand for payment, for a share of nothing, his fingers wiggling impatiently. A cold, familiar dread, sharp and immediate, settles in your gut. It's the same dread you felt when an enemy flank turned, when the battle line began to break. Your own hands, scarred and raw, clench into fists at your sides, the memory of their brutal purpose flaring. You look from the bailiff's outstretched hand to the desolate field, then back to his impassive face, his eyes devoid of understanding, only seeing numbers, only seeing what he's owed. He continues to speak, his voice a drone, outlining the penalties, the loss of land, the consequences. His words, light and unburdened by real suffering, mock the gnawing emptiness in your own stomach, the cold ache in your wife's eyes, the quiet hunger you see in your children. A red haze descends, quick and blinding. The world narrows to the bailiff's demanding hand, to the insolence in his watery eyes. Years of holding a blade, of making swift, decisive choices between life and death, scream through your veins. Your hand moves, not to pull a weapon, but to meet his demand with something far older, far more brutal. A blur of motion, a sudden, sickening thud as your fist connects, not with his hand, but with the soft flesh of his jaw. The crack of bone, sharp and unnatural, cuts through the icy silence. He crumples, a surprised gasp escaping his lips, then a gurgling moan as he hits the frozen ground, his cloak spreading around him like spilled ink on snow. The sudden, profound silence after the violence is absolute, broken only by your own ragged breathing. You stand over him, your knuckles aching, a faint coppery taste of adrenaline in your mouth. He lies there, unmoving, a thin stream of dark blood slowly staining the pristine white of the frost. The barren field stretches endlessly behind him, a silent witness. This, you realize, is the true harvest of your return. This is the only payment you have left to offer, the only language you truly remember. You came back, yes, but home wasn't ready for the kind of man you became, a man whose debts are now paid not in coin or crops, but in the brutal, unflinching currency of blood. The war may be over, but its violence has found a new, terrifying field of battle, right here, in the heart of your home. The marketplace is a suffocating riot of sounds and smells. The air is thick with the competing aromas of roasting meat, stale fish, damp straw, and unwashed bodies, all swirling together in a heavy, cloying fog that catches in your throat. Above it all, a relentless cacophony assaults your ears. The hawkers, shouts, the braying of a donkey, the shrill cries of children, the low murmur of haggling voices, and the constant scuffle of hundreds of feet on muddy ground. You push through the jostling crowd, your senses overwhelmed, every instinct screaming for order amidst this chaotic press of humanity. A sharp elbow suddenly digs into your ribs, hard. You flinch, a jolt of pain, and spin around, your body automatically tensing, preparing for a blow, for the quick, deadly dance of battle. Your eyes, narrowed and sharp, lock onto the culprit, a man, slightly shorter than you, his face ruddy and flushed with ale or anger, already turning to scowl. He shoves you again, harder this time, a muttered insult slithering from his lips, something about your size, your grim face. It's a challenge, a petty, foolish provocation, no more than a spark in this powder keg of a crowd. But to you, it's a sudden, undeniable threat. The shouts of the marketplace fade into a dull roar, replaced by the ringing silence of a battlefield. The scent of cooking food vanishes, superseded by the phantom tang of blood and fear. Your vision narrows, focusing solely on the man's belligerent face, the slight tremor in his hand as he raises it again, not to strike, but to push. Your mind doesn't process the triviality of the insult, only the aggressive movement, the intent to harm. Your hand shoots out, faster than thought, a blur of motion. You don't aim for a defensive block. No. Your fingers, calloused and strong, wrap around his wrist, twisting with bone-jarring force. You feel the small bones grind, hear a sharp, involuntary gasp tear from his throat as you pull him off balance. He stumbles forward, his eyes wide with sudden, genuine terror, the bravado evaporating from his face in an instant. You don't release your grip. Instead, with a raw, guttural grunt that scrapes from deep within your chest, you hurl him. He flies backward, a rag doll tossed by an unseen hand, crashing into a stall laden with pottery. Clay shards explode outwards, scattering across the muddy ground with a brittle, sickening sound. A stunned silence falls over the immediate vicinity, spreading outwards through the market like a ripple. The boisterous noise dies, replaced by gasps and muffled exclamations of shock. All eyes are on you, wide and fearful, then quickly averted. The man lies amidst the shattered pottery, moaning, clutching his arm, his face pale, his small insult now paid for with pain. You stand there, chest heaving, your hands still throbbing from the impact, the phantom scent of battle clinging to your nostrils. You look at the destruction, at the fear in the faces of the onlookers, then down at your own hand. It was a squabble, a foolish, petty squabble, and you responded as if to a Saracen charge. The marketplace, once a place of bustling life, now feels like a freshly fallen field, and you, the victor, are left with the chilling, bitter taste of a peace you are clearly unfit to inhabit. You are home, but the war still rages, and it's you who brings the fire. The crack of the breaking pottery still echoes in the sudden, profound silence of the marketplace. You stand over the crumpled form of the man, his groans a raw, animal sound amidst the scattered shards and spilled wares. A thin trail of blood, already darkening, trickles from his mouth, staining the muddy ground. Your knuckles throb, a dull, insistent ache that feels strangely satisfying. A tangible end to the sudden, perceived threat. The smell of cold mud, mingled with the metallic tang of fresh blood, fills your nostrils, grim and familiar. The crowd around you, which moments ago was a bustling, chaotic mass, has recoiled. They stare, their faces pale, their eyes wide, with a mixture of terror and shocked disbelief. Their whispers are hushed, sharp, and laden with condemnation. Like 100 tiny daggers pricking at your ears, you don't flinch. You've heard the whispers of terror and judgment before, on fields of slaughter, from those who stood too close to the edge of your brutal world. Here, they mean nothing. For you, it was swift, decisive, a challenge presented, a consequence delivered. In the lands you left, such provocations were not merely insults. They were tests, often precursors to lethal encounters. Hesitation meant death. Weakness invited further aggression. Justice there was immediate, brutal, and often dealt with the unforgiving swiftness of a blade. A man's actions had instant, visceral repercussions. This man, with his petty shove and his drunken insult, presented a challenge, and you answered it with the only language that mattered in the crucible of war: undeniable force. The lingering adrenaline hums in your veins, a powerful, almost righteous energy, a grim satisfaction that the threat, however minor, has been decisively neutralized. You lift your gaze from the moaning figure, sweeping your eyes across the frightened faces of the villagers. You see their fear, their revulsion. They cower, they judge, they recoil. They don't understand. They see brutality where you see a simple, undeniable truth, a direct affront met with a direct response. They speak of law, of order, of measured consequence. But you've seen what happens when the law breaks, when order crumbles, when men hesitate. You've learned that sometimes the only real justice is the one you dispense with your own hands, swift and absolute, to ensure survival. You turn and walk away, your boots crunching on the broken pottery, each step deliberate, unburdened. The marketplace remains in stunned silence behind you, slowly beginning to stir with muffled murmurs. You are home, yes, but the harsh, unforgiving laws of the desert, of the battlefield, are now etched into your very soul. You brought them back with you, not as souvenirs, but as principles. And you realize, with a chilling certainty, that the justice you dispense, born of that savage land, will always be too swift, too brutal, and utterly alien to the quiet, fragile peace of the home you return to. You are a product of a world without law, now imposing your truth on one that believes it has one. The biting cold of the forest's edge instantly pricks at your skin, sharper than the village air, carrying the crisp, clean scent of pine needles and frozen loam. You step off the muddy path, the sudden crunch of brittle leaves and twigs under your boots feeling unnaturally loud, yet strangely comforting. The tall, dark trees, stripped bare by winter, close in around you like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching, forming a jagged protective canopy against the pale, low light of the afternoon sky. You feel the immediate shift in the air, a cool stillness that promises both concealment and a different kind of vigilance. You move deeper, your pace deliberate, silent, a slow, predatory glide that feels utterly natural to your body. Every muscle is tuned, alert. Your eyes scan the shadows, not for familiar landmarks, but for movement, for signs. A snapped twig that might mean a deer, or something else. A flicker of distant light between the trees, perhaps a poacher, or a patrol. Your ears strain, picking out the subtle rustle of a squirrel, the distant caw of a crow, each sound categorized, assessed, then dismissed or noted. Here, in the dense quiet, your senses sharpen, shedding the dullness of village life. The world here is simpler, rawer. Every fallen log is a potential hiding spot. Every thicket, a place to lie in wait. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves is rich, primal, a stark contrast to the stale odors of man-made dwellings. You breathe it in, deep and full, a strange invigoration in its wildness. You feel less exposed here, less judged. The trees don't care about your past, your scars, your bitterness. They offer no comfort, but also no condemnation. Your hand instinctively reaches for your belt, brushing against the smooth, worn handle of your utility knife, a small, familiar weight. It's not a war sword, but it's a blade, an extension of your intent. You feel a strange sense of purpose here, a different kind of rhythm. This is a place to hunt, yes, for sustenance. But it is also a place to hide, to disappear, to be forgotten, or to remember the oldest, most brutal truths of survival, those etched deeper than any memory of a woman's touch or a child's fearful gaze. You press your palm against the rough bark of an ancient oak, feeling its cold, unyielding resilience. The forest, in its profound indifference, becomes a mirror. It is a place of solitude, a refuge from the clamor of a home that no longer understands you. Yet, it also awakens the hunter, the survivor, the brutal reality of the man you became. You came seeking a reprieve, but you found a different kind of truth. The forest does not offer peace. It offers a stark, elemental reflection of the broken, dangerous thing you now are. A creature that understands only the silent, unforgiving laws of the wild. A place where the line between hunter and hunted blurs, not just outside, but deep within you. The faint rustle of dry leaves underfoot sends a jolt through your entire body. You drop, instantly, into a low crouch behind the gnarled roots of an ancient tree, your hand instinctively gripping the hilt of your utility knife. Your breath catches, held taut in your chest, your heart hammering against your ribs. Your eyes, narrowed to slits, sweep the shadowed copse ahead, searching for the telltale glint of steel, the outline of a hidden archer, the subtle shift in the undergrowth that betrays an enemy's presence. Every shadow stretches, morphing into a potential threat. Every gust of wind sounds like a whispered command, every creak of timber like the tightening of a bowstring. The air here is cold and still, carrying the sharp, clean scent of pine, yet your nostrils are filled with the phantom reek of stale blood and fear, the omnipresent odors of 1,000 ambushes. Your body remembers. It remembers the sudden silence that precedes an attack, the deceptive calm before the storm. You recall the precise tactics, the feint, the flanking maneuver, the coordinated rush. Your mind races, calculating angles, assessing escape routes, visualizing a counterattack. The blood sings in your ears, hot and urgent, preparing for a fight that isn't there. You remain frozen, utterly still, for a long, agonizing moment. The silence of the forest is profound, broken only by the distant caw of a crow and the frantic beat of your own heart. No enemy appears. No arrows fly. No shouts erupt from the trees. Slowly, painstakingly, the tension begins to ebb, like a tide reluctantly pulling back from a battered shore. The shadows retract their imagined threats. The whispers become merely the wind, the creaks of timber just old wood. The rustle of leaves, you now realize, was just a small bird, or perhaps a falling branch, disturbed by the unseen flow of winter air. You rise slowly, cautiously, your muscles aching from the sudden, intense strain. Your grip on the knife loosens, but you don't fully release it. The fear, the adrenaline, the vivid, horrifying clarity of imminent battle may have receded, but a chilling residue remains, clinging to your senses, making your hands tremble slightly. You look around at the peaceful, silent forest, bathed in the pale light of a low winter's sun. To a normal man, this is quiet, tranquil. To you, it's a landscape of perpetual war. This is not a safe haven. It's another battlefield, one you carry within you. Every rustle, every shadow, every fleeting sound becomes a reminder of the relentless vigilance demanded by a life lived under the constant threat of ambush. You understand now that even in the quietest, most peaceful corners of home, the war you endured still wages its silent internal battles. You have returned from the fighting, yes, but the battlefield is now etched onto your soul, and every copse, every shadow holds the chilling, undeniable potential for a fight you are forever prepared to face. The forest offers no escape from the warrior you've become. It only magnifies his restless, brutal vigilance. The air in the common room is thick tonight, not with the usual raucous laughter, but with a strange, heavy quiet, punctuated by the mournful strains of a lute. Its plucked strings send thin, reedy notes spiraling upwards, filling the space with a melancholic melody. You sit by the hearth, the rough wool of your tunic warm against your skin, but the heat of the fire does little to thaw the cold knot in your chest. The scent of damp wood smoke and bitter ale clings to the air, a familiar backdrop to this unfamiliar ache. A young woman, her face pale in the flickering firelight, sings. Her voice is clear, sweet, and pure, carrying the old ballads, the tales of heroes and maidens, of ancient battles and lost loves. You recognize the words, the familiar cadence of a story you've heard 100 times since childhood. It's a song of sacrifice and glory, of a knight leaving his home to fight for God, promising to return crowned with honor, his lady waiting faithfully. The villagers around you listen, their eyes misty, some humming softly, lost in the romanticized vision of a bygone era. You listen too, or rather you hear. But the words, once stirring, now feel hollow, utterly devoid of truth. The tales of valiant knights, of pure maidens, of righteous cause, feel like a cruel joke. The glory she sings of is a lie, a carefully constructed illusion. You remember the reality, the dust and the blood, the screams, the desperation, the raw, brutal hunger that stripped men of all honor. You remember the faces of comrades, not noble and brave, but terrified, bleeding, their last gasps unheroic, just raw agony. The song swells, reaching a crescendo of supposed triumph, of the hero's grand return. The woman's voice trembles with manufactured emotion, touching the hearts of those around you. But your own heart remains cold, unresponsive, a stone in your chest. No stirring, no yearning, no echo of the pride you once felt at such tales. All you feel is a profound, bitter emptiness, a sense of deep, unfixable loss. The images she conjures, of noble deeds and faithful love, feel like a mockery, a painful reminder of everything that was lost, everything that was broken, everything that could never be reclaimed. You clench your jaw, tasting the lingering bitterness of the ale on your tongue. The music, meant to soothe, only chafes, a constant reminder of the profound chasm between the stories men tell themselves and the brutal truth you carry. This old song, once a source of comfort and pride, now serves only as a chilling testament to the lies that sent so many brave, foolish men to their deaths. You came home, yes, but the songs of home no longer stir your heart. They only serve to deepen the wound, a constant, mournful echo of a past that can never be truly sung away. You are back, but the music of this world is out of tune with the broken melody of your soul. The lute music is different now, jagged and crude, strummed by a different, younger hand. It's a faster rhythm, a simpler melody, punctuated by the raucous laughter of a few drunkards, but lacking the soulful depth of the old ballads. The air still smells of stale ale and smoke, but now a sharper, colder edge seems to cut through it, a metallic tang that feels familiar. You sit in your usual corner, ostensibly listening, when a new voice, raw and untutored, begins to sing words that make the blood in your veins turn to ice. The ballad isn't about ancient heroes. It's about you. Your name, or a crude caricature of it, is woven into a tale of sudden, unprovoked violence. You hear descriptions of a giant, returned from the P.A.B. Eastern Wars, his eyes like burning coals, his hands cruel as a Saracen blade. The song details a market squabble, exaggerating the push, painting your brutal response as an act of monstrous, uncontrolled rage, a smashing of pottery, a breaking of bones, all for a minor slight. The words are clumsy, the rhymes forced, but the message is chillingly clear. You are not a hero returned. You are a beast unleashed. The singer, a young man with a thin, reedy voice and too much ale in him, glances in your direction, then quickly looks away, a flicker of nervous triumph in his eyes. He is playing to the crowd, basking in their hushed awe and fearful nods. The villagers around you, who only yesterday might have offered a cautious nod of respect, now shrink back, their gazes furtive, laden with a chilling fear. Their whispers are no longer about distant crusades or grand ideals. They are about you, about the incident, about the man who broke another in the marketplace. You feel their eyes on you, not with curiosity but with a palpable dread, a recognition of something savage and untamed in your very presence. You take a long, slow drink of your bitter ale, its harshness doing little to numb the sudden, sharp clarity of the moment. No one challenges the ballad. No one speaks up in your defense. The story, once told, becomes truth, solidified by fear and gossip. You hear the fear in their voices, feel it in their averted glances, taste it in the air. This is the new narrative, the one they cling to, the one that makes sense of the cold, hard thing you've become. The hero they expected never returned. Only the monster. You clench your jaw, the sound of the crude ballad now a hammer blow against your very soul. You look down at your calloused hands, hands that have dealt death, yes, but also endured unspeakable horrors. Hands that once held a child. Now they are simply cruel as a Saracen blade. You came home for peace, for family, for a life remembered. Instead, you find your identity, forged in fire and blood, has been reshaped by rumor and fear, cast into a new, terrifying legend. The songs of this home are not about glory, but about the chilling reality of the man they now see. And in their fearful eyes, in their whispered ballads, you are not a man at all. The fire in the hearth crackles and spits, a small, defiant beacon against the oppressive gloom of the sleeping chamber. Its flickering light dances across the rough-hewn beams of the ceiling, casting shifting patterns of shadow that twist and writhe like tormented spirits. You lie on the straw pallet, the scratchy wool blanket pulled up to your chin, but the warmth does little to dispel the profound chill that seems to emanate from deep within your bones. The air carries the faint, comforting scent of old wood smoke and clean linen, yet it feels thin, somehow insufficient. You gaze upwards, not at the ceiling but through it, as if the beams and thatch were no longer there. Your eyes are fixed on the invisible canopy of the night sky, a sky you've spent countless hours beneath, on watch, on campaign, in terror. You try to find the familiar constellations, the fixed points of your youth, the Great Bear, the Pole Star, the comforting pinpricks of light that guided you through so many dark nights. You trace their paths in your mind, but they feel distant, strangely displaced. Instead, your memory conjures other stars, blazing with an unfamiliar intensity, constellations that hung low and heavy over the deserts of the east. You remember the scorching nights, the immense, terrifying silence of the vast, open plains, broken only by the mournful howl of a distant jackal or the sharp, metallic clang of a patrol's armor. You recall the star charts you learned from grizzled veterans, the alien names they gave to those blazing patterns, the scorpion, the archer, the serpent. Their light was a different kind of guide, a map of an alien world where life and death hung in the balance of every shifting shadow. A shiver runs through you, not from cold, but from the stark clarity of that memory. The stars here, those familiar ones of home, feel pale, distant, almost irrelevant. Their gentle, familiar sparkle offers no solace, no echo of the brutal truths learned under a different, harsher sky. The comfort they once represented is gone, replaced by a profound sense of dislocation. The flickering firelight on the ceiling now seems to cast not familiar patterns, but the strange, sharp geometry of those distant, unforgiving constellations etched into your mind. You turn your head on the rough pillow, a hollow ache in your chest. You are home, under the same sky you knew as a boy, but the heavens themselves feel wrong. Your mind is still mapping a desert, still navigating by the cruel, brilliant beacons of a war-torn land. The stars of home, once a guide, are now just unfamiliar points of light, unable to penetrate the deep, unyielding darkness that the constellations of a distant, brutal world have imprinted upon your very soul. You realize with chilling clarity that your eyes, like your heart, are forever fixed on a sky that is no longer here. The cold, sharp breath of the night hits your face, stinging your eyes, a stark contrast to the stagnant air of the inn. You push through the creaking door, stepping out into the hushed quiet of the village square. Above you, the sky stretches out, immense and black, studded with countless pinpricks of light. It's the same sky, the same constellations you grew up under, the same distant fires that once filled your youthful heart with awe and the solemn promise of divine purpose. You used to look up, feeling the immense comforting gaze of God, believing in a heaven that watched over you, especially on those long, arduous journeys to the Holy Land. You remember those nights on the dusty plains of Outremer, under a blazing canopy of unfamiliar stars. You would lie wrapped in your coarse blanket, armor clanking softly nearby, gazing at that alien sky. You'd whisper prayers, desperate pleas for strength, for victory, for absolution, convinced that the hand of God would guide your sword, that salvation awaited those who sacrificed for the cross. The priests had promised it. The ballads had sung it. The very stars seemed to shimmer with that divine assurance, a celestial map leading to redemption. But the memories that return now are not of divine intervention. They are of the relentless, pitiless sun, beating down on dying men, of the screams swallowed by the desert wind, of the plague that devoured Christian and Saracen alike, indifferent to prayer or righteous cause. You recall the blank, unblinking eyes of comrades, their faith and yours shattering with their last choked breath under that same vast, indifferent sky. No miracles descended. No divine host appeared. Only the brutal, unending reality of steel, hunger, and bone-weary exhaustion. Now standing here, back in your own village, under the familiar stars of your childhood, that old promise feels like a cruel, empty jest. The light from these heavens, once a beacon, now feels thin, remote, offering no warmth, no spiritual solace, no glimmer of the salvation you were told awaited you. They are just distant fires, burning in an empty, uncaring void. You search the familiar patterns, the bear, the hunter, trying to rekindle a spark of that old, unquestioning faith. But there is only a profound, echoing emptiness. The sky watches, silent, impassive, just as it watched the slaughter, the suffering, the brutal compromises that corroded your very soul. You clench your jaw, the cold air filling your lungs, tasting of dust and the bitter ashes of lost hope. The heavens, once a source of unwavering guiding hope, now feel like a grand empty stage where the promised salvation never arrived. They are a monument to the lies that sent so many men to their deaths, leaving only a chilling, unyielding weight of an unfulfilled quest. You are home, but the sky above no longer promises anything. It simply is, and that cold indifference is perhaps the most brutal truth of all. The chill wind carries a faint, familiar scent, cutting through the usual village smells of damp earth and wood smoke. It's the scent of old leather, stale sweat, and something else, something indefinable, a raw, primal odor that your senses, honed by years of conflict, instantly recognize as campaign. Your head snaps up, your eyes scanning the muddy road that winds into the village, a path you thought only you would ever walk again. Then you see him, a solitary figure, cloaked and hunched, trudging slowly, his gait heavy and uneven. He moves with the same weary, economical steps you recognize in yourself, a stride born of endless marching over unforgiving terrain. As he draws closer, the details emerge. The faded, patched tunic, the rough, scarred face obscured by a tangled beard, the deep-set eyes that hold the same distant, haunted look you see in your own reflection. It's not just any man, it's him. Thomas, your brother in arms, a man who stood shoulder to shoulder with you through sieges and skirmishes, a face you thought lost to the desert sands. He sees you then. His head, previously bowed, lifts slowly. His eyes meet yours, and in their depths you see a flicker of recognition, a spark of the old camaraderie, instantly followed by a profound, shared weariness. There's no joyful shout, no triumphant embrace, just a slow, almost painful acknowledgement. He raises a hand, a heavy, hesitant gesture, not a wave, but a silent salute of survival. The rough wool of his cloak, now visible, is frayed, stained, a testament to a journey as long and brutal as your own. As he approaches, the air around him seems to carry the ghost of the desert wind, the distant clang of steel, the echo of screams. He looks older, far older than the years should allow, his face a map of fresh scars and deeper lines than you remember. His body, once lean and agile, is now gaunt, its movements stiff, betraying a lingering pain. You see the same signs of a broken man, the same bitterness etched into his features, the same brutal history in his eyes. He is a mirror, reflecting the grim reality of your own return. He stops before you, the mud-caked boots of another Crusader now standing on the same ground as yours. The silence between you is heavy, thick with unspoken horrors, with shared memories that no words could ever truly convey. You both stand there, two ghosts returned from a forgotten war, two broken men in a world that wasn't ready for the truth of their experiences. His arrival isn't a celebration. It's a stark, chilling reminder that you are not alone in your desolation, that the war you carried home has found another weary soul, equally shattered, equally adrift. He is not just a brother in arms, he is another testament to the enduring, brutal cost of a faith that bled you dry. The heavy silence between you and Thomas stretches, thick with unspoken years and unspeakable horrors. The muddy ground beneath your feet feels solid, yet the world around you, the familiar village square, seems to blur at its edges. His eyes, the same weary, haunted pools you see in your own reflection, meet yours. There's no need for words. In their depths, you read the story of the long marches, the thirst, the terror, the relentless butchery, the moments of utter despair that you both endured. It's a language understood not by sound, but by the very tremor in your soul. He shifts his weight, a slight, almost imperceptible movement, his gaze flicking to the left, towards the milling villagers. You catch it. Instantly. It's a habit, a reflex from 1,000 ambushes, assessing threats, noting positions, evaluating vulnerabilities. Your own body tenses in response, a silent echo of his vigilance. You know, without him uttering a single syllable, that he sees the same soft, oblivious faces, the same careless movements, the same profound lack of readiness that you do. The air around them, filled with mundane concerns, feels fragile, utterly unaware of the dormant violence you both carry. His hand, gnarled and scarred, raises slowly, not quite to touch, but to gesture subtly towards a deep, jagged scar that bisects your left eyebrow. Your fingers, just as scarred, instinctively brush the puckered flesh. He doesn't ask about it, doesn't need to. In his eyes, you see the memory of the same whistle of an arrow, the same searing pain, the same desperate scramble for cover. And in turn, your gaze drops to the slight, almost imperceptible limp in his right leg, a constant, nagging reminder of a blow you both took, a piece of shrapnel that tore through his flesh while you huddled behind the same inadequate shield. These are not just wounds, they are shared sentences, a brutal, visceral grammar of survival. You feel a profound, aching understanding wash over you, a bitter comfort in finding another who speaks this language of violence, this unspoken dialect of the damned, the casual chatter of the villagers, the distant braying of a donkey, the shrill cry of a child. All these sounds, which felt alien and jarring only moments ago, now recede further, becoming mere background noise to the intense, silent dialogue passing between you and Thomas. He is not home, not truly. Neither are you. You are both still out there, under a different, brutal sun, carrying the weight of deeds that cannot be spoken in the soft tongues of peace. You stand there, two silent monuments to a war that broke everything it touched, finding a twisted solace in the bitter reflection of each other. This shared language, born of blood and fire, connects you to him in a way no joyful reunion with loved ones ever could. But it also isolates you further, sealing you both off from the world you've returned to, cementing the brutal truth that even when the fighting stops, the warrior within still lives, and his truest companions are those who understand his unspoken, violent tongue. The biting cold of the pre-dawn air seeps through the thin fabric of your farmer's tunic, making you shiver. You're alone in the dim light of your small room, the fire in the hearth barely aglow. Your hands, calloused and rough, reach for something hidden beneath a pile of old sacking. The metal is cold, shockingly so, against your fingertips, almost burning with its chill. It's a fragment of chainmail, a simple vest, salvaged from your campaign gear, now worn directly against your skin, under the scratchy wool of your everyday tunic. The heavy, gritty feel of the iron rings against your chest and shoulders is a familiar weight, a ghost of the full hauberk you once wore. Each tiny, interlocking ring presses into your flesh, a constant, abrasive reminder of its presence. It chafes against your skin, especially under your armpits, where the movement of your arms creates a persistent, dull friction. The smell is faint, metallic, a ghost of old rust and dried sweat, but it's undeniably the scent of war, clinging to you even here, in the quiet heart of your home. It's a harsh, unyielding embrace, utterly unlike the soft wool and linen of civilian life. You pull the coarse tunic over it, trying to conceal its presence, to blend into the quiet normalcy of the village. But the chainmail is too real, too heavy, too loud. Every movement you make, every turn of your torso creates a subtle, almost imperceptible whisper of metal against cloth, a low, constant rustle that only you seem to hear. It's a hidden song, a soft metallic dirge, a constant reminder of the shell you still wear, even when the armor is gone. It feels like a second skin, a layer of protection that has become as essential as the flesh beneath it, even when there is no visible enemy. Your wife stirs in the bed, a soft sigh escaping her lips. You freeze, your breath held, the chainmail pressing against your ribs, its chill deepening with your stillness. She doesn't awaken, she doesn't know, no one knows. This is your secret, your burden, your last, desperate tether to the man you were, to the brutal truths you lived. The feel of the iron against your skin is a paradox, both a constant torment and a profound, desperate comfort. It's a shield against invisible blows, a silent promise of readiness in a world that believes in peace. You finish dressing, the layers of coarse cloth doing little to soften the harsh, unyielding presence of the male. You are a farmer, a villager, playing a part in a world that has moved on. But beneath the surface, under the rough tunic, the cold, hard reality of the chainmail tells a different story. It whispers of a war that is never truly over, a battle that continues to rage within you, demanding that you remain armored, always vigilant, always ready, even when home isn't. The weight is heavy, the feel harsh, but it's the only true comfort you know in this fragile, unfamiliar peace. You're out in the barren fields, the raw winter wind whipping around you, biting at your exposed skin. The air is thick, with the scent of damp, frozen earth, a smell that normally signals honest labor, the promise of a future harvest. You wield a heavy spade, its rough wooden handle digging into your calloused palms, its iron blade biting reluctantly into the unyielding soil. Each swing is an effort, a grunt of exertion tearing from your throat. But this isn't just about turning earth. It's about a different kind of burden, a silent, unseen armor you carry beneath your rough farmer's tunic. The chainmail vest, its cold, harsh rings pressed against your flesh, moves with every swing, every twist of your torso. It chafes and scrapes, a constant low-level irritation that never truly fades. You feel its weight, not just as a physical burden, but as a mental one, a perpetual reminder of the vigilance it represents. The metallic tang of its iron, faint but ever-present, mingles with the honest smell of the soil, a grim counterpoint to the peace you are supposed to be living. You hear its subtle whisper, the soft rustle of metal on cloth, a sound only you perceive, a constant, metallic lullaby to a war that refuses to die. A flicker of movement at the edge of the tree line. Your head snaps up. Instantly, your body tensing, your grip on the spade tightening until your knuckles whiten. Your eyes, narrowed and sharp, scan the deep shadows, searching for an enemy that isn't there, for the glint of steel, the telltale sign of an ambush. The phantom sounds of a war-torn desert fill your ears. The distant thud of hooves, the guttural shouts, the metallic clang of steel. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the cold, hard chainmail. It's a bird, you realize after a moment. A crow taking flight, its black silhouette stark against the pale winter sky. But the surge of adrenaline, the animalistic readiness for violence, has already flooded your veins, leaving you trembling. The spade feels clumsy in your grip now, an inadequate tool for a perceived threat that demanded a sword. The chainmail, once a necessity for survival in a brutal land, is now a prison, a constant reminder of the war that rages silently within you, dictating your reactions, sharpening your senses, making you see enemies where there are only crows. It's an armor for a war that never truly ended, merely retreated into the confines of your own mind. You resume digging, each swing a futile attempt to bury the persistent reality of that internal battle. The soil yields, begrudgingly, but the chainmail remains, cold and unyielding against your skin, a testament to the inescapable truth. You are home, yes, but your body, your mind, your very soul are still armored for a fight, forever bound by the brutal necessity of war. This vest, hidden beneath your farmer's guise, is not just protection, it is a permanent mark, a chilling symbol of a peace you can never fully inhabit. The biting wind, sharp with the scent of pine and distant snow, whips around you as you stand at a desolate crossroads. The ground beneath your heavy boots is hard, frozen, each crunch of packed earth echoing the profound silence that surrounds you. Before you, the muddy track forks into two distinct paths. To the left, a narrower, overgrown trail winds upwards, disappearing into the dense, dark woods, towards where the ancient monastery is said to sit, veiled in mist and prayer. To the right, the main road, though equally muddy and neglected, stretches out into the distant, uncertain horizon, towards whispers of mercenary camps and skirmishes in neighboring lordships. The air on the left path carries a faint, almost ethereal scent, old parchment, damp stone, and the ghostly aroma of extinguished incense. It speaks of quiet contemplation, of measured footsteps on cold flagstones, of hushed chanting, and lives dedicated to a different kind of war, a spiritual one. You close your eyes for a moment, picturing the cloistered courtyards, the solemn faces, the rhythmic rise and fall of prayers that echo through ancient stone walls. A fleeting image of a life without steel, without blood, without the constant scream of survival dances at the edge of your mind. It offers a promise of peace, yes, but a peace bought with an absolute surrender, a renunciation of the man you've become. Then your senses shift, pulled by the faint, rougher sense from the right. The wind carries a distinct, acrid smell of stale wood smoke, cheap ale, and unwashed bodies, underscored by the unmistakable metallic tang of rust and old blood. It's the scent of men, rough and ready, living hard, fighting harder. You hear it too, faintly, the distant, muffled thud of a drum, a single, sharp shout, quickly cut short, the indistinct murmur of many rough voices. It speaks of chaos, yes, but also of brutal clarity, of a world where strength is understood, where your scars are not marks of shame but symbols of survival. It's a return to the known, a life where the rules are harsh but undeniable. You open your eyes, the biting wind bringing a sharp, almost bitter taste to your tongue. The choice is stark, laid bare before you, two paths to two entirely different fates. One offers the illusion of salvation, bought at the cost of erasing the man you are. The other offers a return to a familiar, brutal rhythm, where your skills are understood, valued even, but at the cost of true peace, of ever truly laying down your sword. Your hands, scarred and calloused, clench into fists, feeling the phantom weight of a hilt. The cold, unwavering truth is that home was not ready for you, and perhaps you were never truly ready for home. Both paths lead away from the fragmented life you've returned to, but neither feels like a true homecoming. You stand there, a lone figure at the fork, torn between a desperate hope for absolution and the grim, undeniable pull of the only life you truly remember. The wind howls, a silent commentary on a choice that feels both inevitable and impossible. You are a man shaped by war, and now home offers only two stark, equally unforgiving paths. One that demands you deny your very nature, and one that demands you embrace it entirely, for better or for worse. The struggle isn't over. It's only just beginning, a solitary battle fought on a cold, unforgiving road. The cold wind cuts around you at the fork in the road, making your threadbare cloak whip and snap like a battle standard. The frozen ground beneath your boots is unforgiving, each crunch of packed earth echoing the profound silence that has always seemed to follow you since your return. To your left, the narrow trail to the monastery promises quiet, a surrender to silence and prayer. You imagine the chill of the cloister, the drone of chants, the feel of smooth prayer beads in your scarred hands. It feels alien, a lie your body cannot tell. Your muscles, hardened by years of gripping steel, of endless marching, ache with a different kind of longing, not for peace, but for purpose, for the brutal clarity of a world where your strength means something. The path to the right, wider and churned to mud by many heavy boots, beckons with a rougher, more honest call. From that direction, the wind carries the faint, unmistakable tang of wood smoke, of sweat, of stale beer, and beneath it all, the coppery scent of iron. You hear it too, a distant, muffled cacophony, the clash of sparring blades, a harsh laugh, the low, guttural roar of men gambling or fighting. It's a symphony of chaos, a brutal melody that, to your war-ravaged soul, feels more like home than any gentle hymn. Your feet, accustomed to the rhythmic slog of campaign, begin to move, almost of their own accord. One step, then another, drawing you inexorably towards the right. You glance back at the monastery path, a fleeting image of soft robes and bowed heads. A life you might have once dreamed of. But the man who dreamed that life perished in a far-off land, leaving only this hardened shell. The thought of feigning piety, of attempting to carve a new life from stillness and unfamiliar peace, feels like a betrayal of the truth etched into your very bones. The mud sucks at your boots with each forward stride, a familiar grip that speaks of relentless travel, of grim determination. The cold of the forest recedes, replaced by the rough promise of a world you recognize, a world where your scars are not marks of shame, but symbols of survival, where your quiet vigilance is a necessity, not a curse. This isn't a choice for glory, nor for salvation. It's simply a return to the only tongue you truly speak, the only rhythm your broken body understands. Home wasn't ready for the warrior you became, a man whose heart beat to the drum of war. And the cold, unwavering truth is, it never will be, but the war, it seems, is always ready for you. The air in the cramped, smoky kitchen is usually filled with the comforting, if sometimes mundane, sense of simmering broth and damp wood. But a sudden, sharp aroma cuts through it, startlingly sweet and strangely exotic. The vibrant, almost cloying perfume of cinnamon mixed with something earthy and unfamiliar. Your head snaps up from the dull task of whittling a spoon. Your senses immediately alert, primed for threat. Your eyes narrow, searching for the source of this unexpected intrusion. It's your youngest child, no more than 3 winters old, standing by the small, rough table. Their tiny hand, sticky and curious, is plunged into a half-empty pouch of spice. A small, dark bundle that you dimly recognize as having come from the market, perhaps traded for by your wife. They pull their hand out, fingers coated in a fine, reddish-brown powder, and with a small, delighted gurgle, pop their thumb into their mouth. You watch, transfixed, as their eyes widen, a tiny wrinkle appearing between their brows. Then, a smile, pure and unburdened, blooms across their face. A sound of sheer, innocent pleasure escapes them, a soft, joyful sigh. But as they pull their thumb away, you see a faint, fine dust of that same exotic spice clinging to their lips, to their tiny, sweet fingers. And in that moment, the raw, unadulterated pleasure on your child's face becomes a mirror for a distant, brutal memory. The scent, now on their skin, is no longer merely cinnamon. It's the overwhelming, suffocating perfume of a conquered city's marketplace after the gates fell. It's the smell of trampled spices, mixed with the acrid stench of smoke, the coppery reek of spilled blood, the metallic tang of fear. You recall the desperate scramble through those narrow, winding alleys, the cries of women, the terrified faces of merchants, the frantic looting. You remember your own hand, rough and greedy, tearing open sacks of precious goods, not for pleasure, but for survival, for something, anything, to barter for another day of wretched existence. The sweet taste your child enjoys is, for you, tainted by the bitter memory of stolen sweetness, of luxury acquired through violence. You clench your jaw, the knife in your hand digging painfully into your palm. This innocent moment, this pure joy in a child's simple discovery, is violently invaded by the indelible, brutal reality of your past. The exotic spice, a harmless delight for them, becomes a poison in your own memory, searing with the taste of avarice and the stench of slaughter. You see their innocent delight, and you feel a profound, aching sorrow. Even here, in the quiet heart of your home, even in the smallest, most beautiful moments, the war you carried back finds a way to remind you of its brutal, inescapable truth. Your past is not merely a memory, it's a living, breathing shadow, tainting even the pure taste on a child's tongue. The cold, damp earth squelches under your bare feet as you crouch low in the barren field, the persistent winter chill seeping into your bones. The air carries the raw, earthy scent of upturned soil, a smell that should promise life, but today feels heavy with something else. In your rough, calloused palm, you hold a small, crude pouch, its coarse fabric worn thin. From it you tip a handful of seeds. These are not the familiar, round kernels of barley or wheat, not the small, smooth beads of local vegetables. No, these seeds are dark, irregularly shaped, almost angular, with a strange, oily sheen to them. They feel alien in your hand, light yet somehow dense, a texture you've never encountered in the fields of your homeland. A faint, almost imperceptible aroma rises from them as you rub them between your thumb and forefinger. A pungent, earthy musk, underscored by a sharp, almost spicy note. It's a scent that clashes with the familiar damp earth, a foreign intrusion that makes your nostrils flare. You remember this smell. You remember it from a dry, windswept plateau far to the east, where desperate men scratched out meager plots of land with borrowed tools, trying to coax life from an unforgiving soil. These aren't just seeds. They are tiny, potent capsules of a distant, brutal memory. You remember the hunger, the desperation, the grim satisfaction of finding these hardy, unusual plants that could survive where others failed. You press your thumb into the cold, damp soil, making a small indentation, then drop a few of the dark seeds into the shallow hollow. You cover them gently, meticulously, your fingers working with a concentration born of grim necessity. You repeat the action, again and again, pushing these foreign seeds into your home soil, a strange ritual of forced growth. The ground itself feels resistant, cold and heavy, as if it recognizes the alien nature of what you are attempting to force upon it. It's too damp for these drought-hardy seeds, too rich for their sparse needs. You know it. But you do it anyway. A distant figure, a neighbor perhaps, walks along the perimeter of his own field, his head bowed, not looking in your direction. He would scoff at these strange seeds, at this foolish attempt to grow something utterly foreign in this northern soil. He would see only waste, only futility, but he does not understand the desperation, the grim hope that clings to these tiny dark capsules. He doesn't know the barren hunger from which they sprung, the raw, unyielding will to survive they represent. You stand slowly, your back aching, your hands gritty with the cold earth and the foreign dust of the seeds. You have planted them, a strange, bitter offering to a land that wasn't ready for your return, nor for the foreign truths you brought with you. You came home hoping for a peaceful harvest, for the familiar rhythm of the land. Instead, you have planted the seeds of a bitter and foreign harvest, one that will either wither and die in this unready soil, or grow into something utterly unrecognizable, something born of a brutal, distant war, forever marking your home with the indelible taste of what you became. You are planting not just seeds, but the enduring, inescapable legacy of your fractured past. The warmth of the hearth barely reaches you, a feeble counterpoint to the deep-seated chill of the old common room. The air is thick with the scent of damp wool, stale ale, and the perpetual earthy aroma of wood smoke that clings to every surface. You sit on a low, backless bench, your body rigid, listening to the incessant crackle and hiss of the fire. Across from you, hunched on a similar bench, sits an old man, his face a roadmap of deep lines and sun-weathered age, his eyes clouded by cataracts, fixed on the dancing flames. He is an elder of the village, a man whose memory stretches back further than most, a keeper of local lore, of small histories. You remember him from your youth, a man of quiet wisdom, of gentle advice, his voice a low, comforting rumble. Now he is utterly silent. He simply sits, his hands, gnarled and trembling, resting on his knees, his breathing shallow, almost imperceptible above the roar of the fire. The silence emanating from him is not one of peace, but something deeper, more profound, a deliberate refusal to engage. You try to meet his gaze, to find a spark of recognition, a hint of the old connection you once shared, before the war, before the change. But his eyes, though open, seem to look through you, into the flickering orange depths of the fire, or perhaps into some distant, internal landscape. There is no flicker of judgment, no outright condemnation, but something far more chilling, a complete, utter absence of acknowledgement. He sees you, yes, but he doesn't see you, not the man he knew, not the man you are. The fire casts long, dancing shadows across his ancient face, making him seem both familiar and terrifyingly alien. His stillness is absolute, a heavy, suffocating blanket that presses down on the room, overriding the gentle murmur of other voices, the soft rustle of movement. You feel the weight of his silence, a tangible barrier between you, thicker and more impenetrable than any castle wall. He remembers the boy who left, perhaps, but the man who returned is a stranger, an unsettling presence that he chooses, with quiet resolve, to ignore. You clench your jaw, the bitter taste of stale ale rising in your mouth. The fire crackles, casting its ephemeral light, but the old man's silence remains unbroken, a cold, hard truth. He offers no words of welcome, no questions of your ordeal, no comfort for your fractured soul. His quiet refusal to engage speaks louder than any accusation, confirming what you already know, that home, in its quiet way, has chosen to forget the man who left, and to simply not see the brutal, broken thing that returned. His silence is not a judgment, but a final, chilling dismissal, leaving you utterly alone in the flickering warmth of the hearth. The old man across the hearth remains still, his rheumy eyes fixed on the dancing flames, a silent, unmoving sentinel against the flickering light. You try once more to catch his gaze, to find some acknowledgement. But his perception seems to hover just beyond your own, lost in the soft haze of age. Your eyes, however, refuse to blur. They are hard, sharp, honed by years of scanning horizons for danger, sifting through the chaos of battle for a weakness, for a threat. They've seen too much, too vividly, and now that legacy burns in their depths. You feel the weight of your own stare, an intense, unblinking focus that seems to bore into the very air. These aren't the soft, innocent eyes of the boy who left. They are the eyes of a man who has witnessed men torn asunder, cities put to the torch, and desperate mothers clutching dead children. They've seen the raw, unadorned face of death, felt the searing heat of 1,000 desert suns reflected in pools of blood. Now, even in the comforting glow of the hearth, your vision remains steeped in that grim reality. The flames do not hold warmth for you. They hold the ghost of burning villages, the flicker of distant skirmishes, the desperate glint of blades in the dark. A slight, almost imperceptible tremor passes through the old man's gnarled hands, a momentary ripple through his profound stillness. He doesn't look directly at you, yet his body seems to subtly shrink, to draw further into itself, as if shielding against an unseen chill. He hasn't met your gaze, but something in your unwavering presence, in the silent intensity of your altered perception, seems to register with him. He feels the weight of your war, not through understanding, but through the sheer, unyielding force of your being, radiating from the very windows of your soul. His cloudy eyes may not see the specific horrors, but they sense the profound, indelible change. You turn your head slowly, away from the old man, away from the deceptive comfort of the hearth. Your gaze now falls upon the ordinary objects in the common room. A stack of wooden bowls, a worn spinning wheel, a patch of rushes on the floor. But you don't see them as they are. You see the bowls as inadequate for starving mouths, the spinning wheel as fragile kindling, the rushes as cover for unseen enemies. Everything is filtered through the brutal lens of survival, colored by the unforgiving truths you learned in a land without mercy. You clench your jaw, tasting the bitter metallic tang of old memories. Your gaze is no longer truly your own. It is a permanent conduit for the horrors you've witnessed, a legacy that cannot be shed, even here in the quiet heart of home. It's a chilling truth. The eyes that saw too much are now blind to simple peace, forever seeing the world not as it is, but as the brutal, dangerous place it became. And in that perpetual vision, you are utterly alone, a silent sentinel, burdened by the terrible, undeniable clarity of your unseeing sight.